Friends, now discuss Indian polity. Okay, chapter name is state legislature. Okay, first we discuss this article. Okay, the state legislature occupies the preeminent and central position in the political system of a state. Article 168 and 212 in part 6 of the constitution deal with the organization, composition, duration, officers, procedures, privileges, power and so on of the state legislature. So, though these are similar to that of the parliament, there are some differences as well. 168 to 212 part 6. Okay. Organization of state legislature. Here there is no uniformity in the organization of the state legislature. Most of the states have an unicameral system, while others have a bicameral system. Okay, at present 2016 only 7 states have 2 houses bicameral. These are Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Maharashtra, Karnataka and Jammu and Kashmir. The Tamil Nadu Legislative Council 2010 has not come into force. The Legislative Council in the Legislative Council in Andhra Pradesh was revived by the Andhra Pradesh Legislative Council Act. Okay, this is 2005. The 7th Amendment Act of 1956 provided for a legislative council in Madhya Pradesh. Okay, the 7th Amendment Act of 1956 provided for a legislative council in Madhya Pradesh. A notification to this effect has to be made to the President. So far, no much notification has been made. His Madhya Pradesh continues to have one house only. The 22 states have unicameral system. 22 states have unicameral system. Here the state legislature consists of the governor and the state legislative assembly. In the states having bicameral system, the state legislature consists of the governor, the legislative council, and the legislative assembly. There is legislative council, Vidhan Parishad, is the upper house of the second chamber or house of elders. For the legislative assembly, Vidhan Sabha is the lower house, first chamber of popular house. The constitution provides for the creation of certain legislative council instead. Accordingly, the parliament can abolish a legislative council. Okay, where it already exists, or create it. Where it does not exist, if the legislative assembly of the concerned state passes a resolution to that effect. Such a specific resolution must be passed by the state assembly by special majority. That is a majority of the total members of the assembly, and a majority and not less than 2/3 of the members of the assembly present and voting. The Act of Parliament is not to be deemed as an amendment of the Constitution for purposes of Article 368 and its passed like an ordinary piece of legislation. There is a simple majority. The idea of having second chamber in the states was criticized in the Constitutional Assembly on the ground that it was not representative of the people, that is delayed legislative process, and that it was an expensive institution. Consequently, the provisions was made for the abolition or creation of a legislative council to enable a state to have a second chamber or not, according to its own willingness and financial strength. For example, Andhra Pradesh got the legislative council 1957, created in 1957, got the same abolished in 1995. The legislative council in Andhra Pradesh was again revived in 2007 after the enactment of the Andhra Pradesh Legislative Council Act 2005. Sorry, the Legislative Council of the Tamil Nadu had been abolished in 1986, and that of Punjab and West Bengal 1969. So after the enactment, okay, the Andhra Pradesh Legislative Council Act 1905, the Legislative Council of Tamil Nadu had been abolished in 1986, and that of Punjab and West Bengal in 1969. In 2010, the Legislative Assembly of Tamil Nadu passed a resolution for the revival of the Legislative Council in the states. Accordingly, the Parliament enacted the Tamil Nadu Legislative Council Act 2010, which provided for the creation of Legislative Council in the states. Okay, however, before this act, before this act was enforced, the Legislative Assembly of Tamil Nadu passed up another resolution in 2011 seeking the abolition of the proposed Legislative Council. Okay, the Legislative Assembly of Tamil Nadu passed another resolution in 2011 seeking the abolition of the proposed Legislative Council. Composition of two houses of composition of assembly strength. The Legislative Assembly consists of representatives, okay, directly elected by the people on the basis of the universal franchise. Its maximum strength is fixed at 500 and minimum strength at 60. It means that its strength varies from 60 to 500 depending on the population size of the state. However, in case of Arunachal Pradesh, Sikkim and Goa, the minimum number fixed at 30, and in case of the Mizoram and Nagaland, it was 40 to 46. Okay, Arunachal Pradesh, Sikkim, Goa, the maximum number fixed at 30. Okay, it may here you can see the maximum strength 500 and minimum to 60. Strength varies 60 to 500 depending on the population size. The Mizoram, the minimum number of fixed at 30, and in case of Mizoram and Nagaland, it is 40 and 46 respectively. Okay. Further, some members of the Legislative Assembly in Sikkim and Nagaland are also elected indirectly. Nominated member. The governor can nominate one member from the Anglo-Indian community. The governor can nominate one member. Okay, the governor can nominate one member from Anglo-Indian community if the community is not adequately represented in the assembly. Originally, this provision was to operate for 10 years, that is up to 1960, but this duration has been extended continuously since then by 10 years each time. Now, under the 95th Amendment Act of 2009, this is last until 2020. The governor can nominate one member from the Anglo-Indian community if the community is not adequately represented in the assembly. Originally, this provision was to operate for 10 years, that is up to 1960, but this duration has been elected continuously since then by 10 years each time. Now, under the 95th Amendment Act of 2009, this is to last until 2020. Territorial constituencies. For the purpose of holding direct elections to the assembly, each state is divided into territorial constituencies. The demarcation of these constituencies is done in such a manner that the ratio between the proportion population of each constituency and the number of states allocated it is the same throughout the state. In other words, the Constitution ensures that there is uniformity of representation between different constituencies in the state. The expression of population means the population is at such hand that at the last preceding census of which the relevant figures have been published. Readjustment after each census, a readjustment is to be made in the total number of seats in the assembly of each state, and the division of each state into title constituencies. The Parliament is empowered to determine the authority and the manner in which it is to be made. Accordingly, the Parliament has enacted the Delimitation Commission Acts 1952, 1962, 1972, and 2002 for this purpose. The 42nd Amendment Act of 1976 had frozen total number of seats in the assembly, and each state and the division of such state into territorial constituencies till the year 2000. At the 1971 level, this band on readjustment has been extended for another years up to 2026 by the 84th Amendment Act of 2001 with the same objective of encouraging population limiting measures. The 84th Amendment Act of 2001 also empowered the government to undertake readjustment, the decentralization of territorial constituencies in a state on the basis of population figure of 1991 census. Later, the 87th Amendment Act of 2003 provided for the delimitation of the constituencies on the basis of 2001 census and not 1991 census. However, this can be done without altering the total number of seats in the assembly of each state. Reservation of SC and ST. The Constitution provided for the reservation of seats for a scheduled caste and scheduled tribe in the assembly of each state on the basis of the population ratios. Originally, the reservation was to operate for 10 years, okay, 1990 up to 1960, but this duration has been extended continuously since then by 10 years each time. Now, under the 95th Amendment Act of 2009, the reservation is to last until 2020. Okay, the composition of council, okay, strength. Unlike the members of the Legislative Assembly, okay, the members of the Legislative Council are indirectly elected. The maximum number of the council is fixed at 1/3 of the total member strength of the Assembly, and the minimum strength of the is fixed at 40. Okay, so it means that the size of the council depends on the size of the assembly of the concerned state. This is done to ensure that the predominance of the directly elected house in the legislative affairs of the state. Though the Constitution has fixed the maximum and minimum limits, the actual strength of a council is fixed by Parliament. Manner of election. Of the total number of members of the Legislative Council, 1/3 are elected by the members of the local bodies in the states, like municipalities, direct boards, etc. 1/12 are elected by graduates of 3 years understanding and residing within the 3 states. 1/12 are elected by teachers and of 3 years standing in the state not lower than standard of the then secondary school. 1/3 of the elected members are elected by the members of the Legislative Assembly of the state from all amongst persons who are not members of the Assembly. The remainder are nominated by the governors and from almost all persons who have social knowledge, practical experience, and ability to science, art, cooperative movement, social services, etc. That's 5/6 of the total number of members of the Legislative Council are indirectly elected by and on basis nominated by the governor. The members are elected in accordance with the system of representation by means of a single transferable vote. The boundaries of authority of the governor's nomination in any case cannot be challenged in the courts. This scheme each composition of a legislative council is as laid down in the Constitution, tentative and not final. The Parliament is authorized to modify or replace the same. However, it has not enacted any such law for so far. Duration of 2 houses. Duration of assembly. Like the Lok Sabha, the Legislative Assembly is not a continuing chamber. Its normal term is 5 years from the date of its first meeting after the general election. The expiration is a period of 5 years. It operates as an automatic dissolution of the assembly. However, the governor is authorized to dissolve the assembly at any time, that is even before the completion of 5 years, to pave the way for previous election. Further, the term of the assembly can be extended during the period of national emergency by law Parliament for 1 year at a time for any length of time. However, this extension cannot be continued beyond the period of 6 months after the emergency has ceased to operate. This means that the assembly should be reacted within 6 months after the revocation of the emergency. During the duration of the council, like the Lok Sabha, the Legislative Council is a continuing chamber, that is it is a permanent body and is not subject to dissolution. but one third of its member retire on the expiration of every second year. So a member continues as such for 6 years. The vacant or seats are filled of a first election or nominations by governor at the beginning of every third year. The returning members are also eligible for re-election and re-nomination any number of times. Sorry friends, just 1 minute. এই যে পড়াশোনা চলছে তোর আচ্ছা 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 ঠিক আছে ভালোভাবে যা তাহলে ঠিক আছে ভালোভাবে যা আচ্ছা আচ্ছা ঠিক আছে Okay friends, let's start. Okay, duration of council. Okay, like the Rajya Sabha, the Legislative Council is a continuing chamber that is the permanent body and is not subject to dissolution, but one third of its members are retired on the expiration of every second year. So a member continues as such for 6 years. Okay, the vacant seats are filed of fresh elections and nominations. Okay, so the governor at the beginning of every third year, retiring members are also eligible for re-election and re-nomination any number of times. Okay, membership of state legislatures. Okay, qualification. The Constitution lays down the following qualification for the persons to be chosen a member of a state legislature. Citizen of India, he must make and subscribe to an oath or of affirmation person before the person authorized by the Election Commission. For the purpose of his oath or affirmation, he swears to bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of India, to uphold the sovereignty and integrity of India. He must be not less than 30 years of age in the case of the Legislative Council, and not less than 25 years of age in the case of the Legislative Assembly. He must possess other qualifications prescribed by Parliament. Accordingly, the Parliament has laid down the following additional qualification in the representation of Peoples Act 1951. A person to be elected to the Legislative Council must be an elector for an assembly constituency in the concerned state and to be qualified for the governor's nomination. He must be a resident in the concerned state. A person to be elected to the Legislative Assembly must be an elector for the assembly constituency in the concerned state. He must be a member of the scheduled caste or scheduled tribe if he wants to contest a seat reserved for them. Every member of scheduled caste or scheduled tribe. Scheduled tribes can also contend a seat not reserved for them. Disqualifications. Under the Constitution, a person shall be disqualified for being chosen as and for being a member of the Legislative Assembly or Legislative Council of a state. Okay, if he holds any office of profit. Okay, so here the important things under the Constitution, a person shall be disqualified for being for being chosen as and for being a member of the Legislative Assembly or Legislative Council of a state if he holds any office of profit under the union or state government. okay, except that of a minister or any other office exempted by state legislature, if he is of unsound mind and stands to declare by a court if he is an undischarged insolvent, if he is not a citizen of India or has voluntarily acquired citizenship of a foreign state or is under any acknowledgement or allegiance to a foreign state, if he is so disqualified under any law made by Parliament. Accordingly, the Parliament has represented and prescribed a number of additional disqualifications in the Representation of People Acts. And one, these are similar to those of the Parliament. These are mentioned here. He must not have been found guilty of certain election offences or corrupt practices in the election. He must not have been convinced. Okay. He must not have been convicted for any offences resulting in imprisonment for 2 or more years. But the detention of a person under preventive detention law is not a disqualification. He must not have failed to lodge an account of his election expenses within the term. He must not have any interest of government in government contracts, works or services. He must not be a director or managing agent, nor hold an office or profit in the corporation in which the government has at least 25% share. He must not have been dismissed from government service, okay, for corruption or disloyalty to the state. He must not have been convicted for promoting enmity between different groups for the offence of bribery. He must not have been punished for preaching and practicing special crimes such as untouchability, dowry and sati. On the question of whether a member has become subject to any of the above disqualifications, the governor decision is final. On the question whether a member has become subject to any of the above disqualifications, the governor decision is final. However, he should obtain the opinion of the election commission and act accordingly. Disqualification on the ground of defection. The constitution also lays down that the person shall be disqualified for being a member of either house of state legislature if he is so disqualified on the ground of defection under the provisions of the 10th schedule. When the question is of disqualification under the 10th schedule is decided by the chairman in the case of the legislative council and speaker in the case of the legislative assembly and not by the governor. In 92, the Supreme Court ruled the decision of the chairman, speaker in this regard is subject to judicial review. Oath or affirmation. Every member of the either house of the state legislature before taking his seat in the house has to make and subscribe an oath or affirmation before the governor or some person appointed by him for this purpose. In this oath, a member of the state legislature swears to bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of India, to uphold the sovereignty and integrity of India, to faithfully discharge the duty of his office. Unless a member takes the oath, he cannot vote and participate in the proceeding of the House, and does not become eligible to the privileges and immunities of the state legislature. A person is liable to a penalty of 500 for each day he sits or votes as member of House before taking and subscribing the prescribed oath or affirmation when he knows that he is not qualified or that he is disqualified for its membership, when He knows that he is prohibited from sitting or voting in the House by virtue of any law made by Parliament or the state legislature. Members of the state legislature are entitled to receive such salaries and allowance as may from time to time to be determined by the state legislature. Vacancies of seats. Vacation of seats. In the following cases, the member of the state legislature vacates to his seat, double membership, disqualification, resignation, absence. Double membership: a person can be a member of the both House of Parliament, House of State Legislature at one or same time. If a person is elected to both the houses, his seat is to one of the house says falls vacant as the provisions of a law made by the state legislature. Disqualification: if a members of the state legislature become subject to any of the disqualification, his seat becomes vacant. Resignation: the members may resign his seat by writing to the chairman of the Legislative Council or Speaker of the Legislative Assembly. And the case may be, the seat falls vacant when the resignation is accepted. Absence: if House of the State Legislature can declare the seat of a member vacant if he absent himself from all its meeting for a period of 60 days without his permission. Other cases, a member has to vacate his seat in the earlier House of State Legislature if his election is declared void by the court, if he is expelled by the House, if he is elected by the office of President or office of Vice President, if he is appointed appointed to the office of Governor of his state. Deciding officers of state legislature: each House of State Legislature has its own presiding officer. There is a speaker and a deputy speaker for the Legislative Assembly, and chairman and a deputy chairman for the Legislative Council. A panel of chairman for the Assembly and a panel of vice president, vice chairman for the Council is also appointed. Speaker of Assembly: the speaker is elected by the Assembly itself from amongst its members. Usually the speaker remains in office during the life of the Assembly. However, the vacates of office earlier in any of the following three cases: if he ceases to be a member of the Assembly, if he resigns by writing to the deputy speaker, if he is removed by resolution passed by majority of all the then members of the Assembly. Such a resolution can be moved only after giving 14 days advance notice. Okay, the Speaker has the following powers and duties. The Speaker's powers: he maintains order and decorum in the Assembly for conducting its business and regulating its procedures. This is his primary responsibility, and he has final power in this regard. He is the final interpreter of the provisions of the Constitution of India, the rules of procedures and conduct of business of Assembly. The legislative procedure proceeds within the Assembly. He adjourns the Assembly or suspends the meeting in the absence of a quorum. He does not vote in the first instance, but he can exercise a casting vote in the case of a tie. He can allow a secret sitting of the House the request of the leader of the House. He decides whether a bill is a money bill. So here is Speaker is okay. He is the final interpreter of the provisions of the Constitution of India. He adjourns the Assembly or suspends the meeting of the absence of the quorum. He does not vote for in the first instance, but he can exercise a casting vote in the case of a tie. He can allow to a secret sitting of the House at the request of the leader of the House. He decides whether a bill is a money bill or not, and his decision on his question is final. He decides the question of disqualification of a member of the Assembly arising on the ground of detection under the provisions of the 10th schedule. He appoints the chairman of all the committees and the Assembly and supervises their functioning. Okay, he himself is the chairman of the Business Advisory Committee, the Rules Committee, and the General Purpose Committee. Deputy Speaker of Assembly, like the Speaker, the Deputy Speaker is also elected by the Assembly itself from amongst its members. He is elected after the election of the Speaker has taken place. Like the Speaker, the Deputy Speaker remains in office usually during the life of Assembly. However, he also vacates his office earlier in any of the following three cases: if he ceases to be a member of the Assembly, if he resigns by writing to the Speaker, if he is removed by the resolution passed by a majority of all the then members of the Assembly. Such a resolution can be moved only after giving 14 days advance notice. The Deputy Speaker performs the duties of the office of the Speaker's office when it is vacant. He also acts as a Speaker when the latter is absent from the sitting or Assembly. In both the cases, he has all three powers of the Speaker. The Speaker nominates from the amongst of the members of a panel of chairmen. Any one of them can preside over Assembly in the absence Assembly in the absence of the Speaker or the Deputy Speaker. He has the same powers of the Speaker when so presiding. He holds office until a new panel of chairmen is nominated. Chairman of Council. Okay, Chairman of the Council. Section 612 now coming. See me what page. Okay. Okay friends, next time we discuss again others.